In the last video, I created the artwork for the character, and now I'm going to give him a skeleton. So I'm going to turn on the grid to make sure everything is centered, and I'm going to start at the root of the body near the hips, and then draw the spine, the neck, the head, and then the different limbs. I'm hiding some of the artwork so I could see exactly where the pivot point is for the joints. And already I have a character that moves. You can see there's a lot of distortion in the artwork, like with his head and stuff, but I can fix that later. So one of the most powerful features of Moho is it has something called smart bones. So you can create these little animations and record them with smart actions, and then use a dial to control this animation repeatedly. So you don't have to animate the whole thing each time. You can just access it with this smart bone. So I'm going to make one for the eyes opening and closing. So I created this smart bone called eyelid, and then I turned it all the way to the left. And so I want it to make the eyes close whenever I move it to the left. And now I can control it. So now I'm going to go the other way. When you turn the smart bone to the right, I want the eyes to open all the way. And there it is, it works. So you could create smart bone actions for a lot of different things. It'll save a lot of time later on during animation, just to be able to create these animations once and then reuse them later quickly. So I'm going to make one for him smiling, and I'm just moving the vector points on the corners of his mouth up and down. And you can see that I can combine that with the previous one I did with the eyelid opening and closing. Now I'm making a smart bone for his mouth being narrow versus wide. I tried a couple different ways to animate the eyes and the eyebrows. The way that I originally did it here ended up breaking later when I did a head rotation, so I didn't show it. So I'll just show the proper way that I did it later. So you can see I can already make a couple different expressions just with a few smart bones. I'm going to do one more for his mouth opening and closing for his jaw. I have to move his teeth and tongue lower, and the shape of his head, the actual jaw area, lower as well. And this isn't for dialogue. I'm going to probably use something called a switch layer to have different mouth shapes for the different sounds you make during dialogue. But in between, I'll be able to control his mouth with these dials. Now I'm making the smart action for the other side for him to close his mouth completely. Great, you can see I can already get some different kinds of expressions with just a few smart bone actions. Now I'm going to fix the body and the way the artwork attaches to the rest of the skeleton. I don't want any kind of distortion, so I'm using layer binding, where every different piece of the artwork I created on a separate layer, and then I'm attaching that to the appropriate bone. So the way you attach the artwork depends on the kind of artwork you have. You might need flexi binding or point binding, or what I'm doing here, layer binding. They all have their specific applications where one's better than the other. Now I can move them around and there's no distortion, everything is moving correctly. I made a smart bone for his foot, but I didn't show it because I ended up deleting it. I don't think I need it for this style that I have right now. And that's it. I already have a character that can be animated, that moves, and has some facial expressions as well. In the next video, I'm going to do a lot more advanced rigging with head turns, body turns, some more smart bones.